All right, so today we're going to talk about the Blackmagic Video Assist, and we're talking about the 5-inch version. All right, so how did we end up with this? So if you take a look at our video about the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera, I talk about why I wanted that camera. But now the only problem with that camera is it has no monitor. There's no screen, there's nothing you can do with it. So you have to buy a monitor. So naturally, we looked at the Blackmagic Video Assist. It's made by the same company. It's a pretty cheap monitor to get. It's got some pretty cool extra features as well that other monitors don't have. So how do we use this monitor? Well, we mainly use it as the monitor for the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera. So we have a HDMI cable running from the Micro Cinema camera up to the monitor. It uses the same batteries as the Micro Cinema camera, which is really handy, and every now and then we plug it in. On very few occasions, we actually have used this monitor with the Nikon cameras. All right, so what do we like about the Blackmagic Video Assist? Okay, so the first thing we really love about the Video Assist is just having a monitor at all. It's really sweet to have a big screen on set to compose your shot and look at it while you're setting up everything. It's really, really nice. I mean, not even just from a technical standpoint. Yes, you can check your focus better. Yes, you can have peaking, you can do all that stuff. You can check your exposure better. You can, all this stuff. But just having it on set, I feel like motivates you. Your picture looks so nice and you get really excited about shooting some really nice shots. So just purely as a motivating factor on set is a really, really nice thing. But of course, yes, there are all those technical aspects that are a really big plus as well. So what I mean by that, it's easier to get things right. So you have a lot of tools like peaking, you have zebras, you can zoom in for focus, you have LUTs that you can use to see how the image is going to look after a LUT is applied. You have histogram, you have audio meters, you have all this really good stuff added to it, which is really, really nice. Now what's great about Blackmagic is they're constantly updating their firmware. So before, you couldn't load LUTs on, and then after a while you could load LUTs on. So they're constantly updating their firmware, which is great. Now granted, they haven't updated the firmware in a long time, but adding those features to a product that you already own is really, really nice. I have to say another thing I really like is it's got a really slick user interface, and it's the small little things that make you think that this is a quality product. So for example, the audio meters on the Blackmagic Video Assist, they record the peaks just like any other device. So when the meters are jumping up and down, you have the peaks that are recorded. So as soon as the meters drop, usually those peaks just disappear. Now what's really nice on the Video Assist is they actually animate down, they slide down, and it's these little touches that make you feel like you have a high quality product. So that brings me to my next point, which is the user interface. The user interface is very well designed, and it is a very nice touchscreen. So you have big buttons, you have big buttons to switch features on and off, and you have sliders, and it is a very responsive touchscreen. And the user interface, for the most part, is quite good. I'll get into the things I don't like about it in a second. Another nice thing is we have this paired up with an articulating arm, and when you have an articulating arm and a monitor, it makes it very flexible for monitor options. You can flip it towards yourself for kind of selfie mode, you can flip it around, you can flip it up, you can flip it low angle, up angle. Having an articulated arm with a monitor is very, very beneficial. You'll have to forgive me if it looks like I'm looking up every now and then because I'm actually looking at the monitor as I'm talking about it. But this thing does have 2 battery slots, and for 2 Canon LPE6 batteries. So the battery life is pretty good because you have 2 of them. What's really nice is there is a power socket, so you can power the monitor and charge the batteries at the same time. So if we do have access to power, what's nice is we can just cycle through the batteries between the camera and the Video Assist. So the battery life is pretty good, I have to say, and especially because there's 2 battery sleds. All right, some things we don't like. So we mentioned that the touchscreen is really nice and there's a nice UI, which is really good, but there is a part of the touchscreen that I don't love, and that is the initial swiping motion to bring up the menu. So there is swiping left and right to bring up a certain menu, and there's swiping up and down to bring up the heads-up display. So those 2 motions are not exactly the most intuitive things, and we've been using this monitor for a while and we still kind of get confused. So we'll swipe left and right to bring up something like, oh, whoops, we didn't mean to do that. Now once you swipe that and you get into the menus, it is great, it is responsive, it is really good, but that initial swiping motion can definitely cause some confusion. Speaking of confusion, the next thing that's kind of interesting is when you have features that exist on the camera and the monitor. So we have the Blackmagic Video Assist paired with the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera. They both have peaking, they both have zebras. Making these 2 gel together is a little bit funny. So sometimes you bring up, for example, all the heads-up display information on the Micro Cinema camera. So you have the recording time, the ISO and all that stuff like that. And then you bring up focus peaking on the monitor. Well, when you do that, all your little digital text all of a sudden gets focus peaking all around it. So that kind of stuff can kind of get confusing when you're dealing with both systems. Another interesting quirk that we found out about this Video Assist, and apparently happens with other monitors, is that the mounting points, if you screw in a 1/4 20 too tight, it starts to push in on the logic board on the monitor, and then renders the monitor completely like useless. Like it just won't turn on, it won't do anything. And until you loosen that screw, you don't realize that something's going wrong. We actually found this out from Alex from Parktown. So we were working with Alex from Parktown Studios in Ottawa, and he's like, oh yeah, that actually happened on one of our monitors as well. So you wish that Blackmagic would have kind of created some kind of barrier so you couldn't screw it in too tight and actually potentially break and damage the monitor. So the last thing we didn't love about this monitor is what happens when you start pairing it with other cameras that are not Blackmagic. So for example, we paired this with the Nikon D7200. Now the Nikon D7200 can send a clean HDMI signal or one with displays over it to the monitor, which is great and you could see it. But the calibration was really off. Like it looks super contrasty coming out of that HDMI port. You had to do a lot of adjustments to the brightness and contrast for it to even look remotely similar to the Nikon monitor. So there was a lot of kind of issues that you couldn't really get an accurate representation of the image that was coming from the camera. Now I don't know if that's because of Nikon's HDMI out or if that's because of Blackmagic's video assist. But either way, it's not a great pairing. Okay, a couple other notes about the Blackmagic Video Assist. What's really nice is this thing actually is an external recorder as well. We don't use it as an external recorder, but you can put an SD card in this and record the HDMI signal that's going into that. You can use that as a backup. You can use that to record higher ProRes 422 HQ codec stuff. You can do all that stuff with this monitor. We don't use it a lot for that, but it is definitely a feature you can look out for. And lastly, I just mentioned that I did pre-order the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I think this monitor is going to be a killer pairing with that camera, because that camera already has a great 5-inch screen. And what's great about this is you can control what goes to the monitor and what's on the screen. So on that 5-inch screen on the camera, I could have all my guides, I could have all my information, and then I could send a clean signal to the monitor, and that would be my nice kind of preview of everything. So I think having those two monitors together is going to be a really, really awesome combination. One more thing I forgot is that there is a 7-inch version of this monitor. Obviously, it's more expensive. This one costs about $495 American, which is about 600 or 700 Canadian is what we bought it for. But there is a 7-inch version of this, and it costs a little more. It is bigger, but it does have more features. Even some of the software features. It has a vector scope and a false color. It has waveform monitors, and it's bigger, and it even has XLR inputs and stuff like that. So there is a bigger version that you also might consider when you're looking at this monitor. All right, that's it for the Blackmagic Video Assist. If you guys have any questions at all about this Video Assist or how we use it, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, guys, because we're going to be covering all our gear in future videos. All right, that's it for this one, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
I'm chilling.